I never believed in ghosts. At least, not until that night. I'm Vanessa Reed, and I've been an actress for as long as I can remember. It's been my life, my passion, and my escape. But sometimes, I wonder if it was my undoing. It all started with Ravenwood Theater. The place was old, decrepit, and infamous for something no one could seem to forget. The Ravenwood Theater had burned down in 1975 during the premiere of a play called The Cursed Bride. The lead actress, Margaret Dawson, tragically died that night. Her death, a victim of the fire, was suspicious. Some claimed it was an accident. Others said it was sabotage. But one thing was clear. Her death was tragic, and the theater was cursed. Fast forward 40 years. Halloween night. My theater troupe, an eccentric group of hopefuls and dreamers, decided to stage a revival of The Cursed Bride. We laughed at the idea of Margaret's ghost haunting the stage. After all, who could believe in such things? We thought the fire was simply a tragic mishap, and Margaret's death was just part of a story we would tell. But it didn't take long for me to understand how wrong we were. I first noticed the oddities during our final rehearsal. We were in the midst of practicing our scenes when props began to vanish. It started with small things, pieces of fabric from the costumes, a single teacup from a scene, and gradually escalated. I dismissed it at first. The theater was old. It was bound to have creaky floorboards, strange noises, and occasional malfunction. But then the whisper started. At first, I thought it was someone else in the crew, a fellow actor, perhaps, or one of the stagehands, playing tricks on us. But the voices didn't sound human. They seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere, reverberating from the rafters, from the corners of the stage, even from behind the walls. And they weren't speaking to us. They were speaking in a language none of us could understand. The worst moment came when Claire, one of the actresses, looked into her dressing room mirror. She screamed. A sharp, terrified sound that echoed throughout the building. We rushed to her side, and she was frozen in place, her eyes wide with terror. In the mirror, she had seen a figure, a bloodied woman with long, dark hair, her body covered in burns and her eyes hollow with rage. It wasn't just a reflection. It was her, the ghost of Margaret Dawson. At that moment, I wish we had all packed up and left. But no one did. Maybe we were too proud, too stubborn, or simply too foolish to admit we were terrified. We went through with the rehearsal, but nothing felt right. The air grew thick with an oppressive sense of doom. The lights flickered, the floorboards groaned beneath us, and the temperature dropped as if the fire's residual heat had never fully left. As the days passed, it became clear that the theater was not as empty as it seemed. We were being watched, stalked by a presence that wanted something from us, something we couldn't yet understand. And then the night of performance arrived. We were all dressed and ready backstage. The audience's murmurs reached us, excitement filling the air, but underneath it all, there was an undeniable tension. I felt it in my chest, a heaviness, a feeling that something was about to go horribly wrong. Claire, still shaken from what she had seen in the mirror, wouldn't even look at the stage. She kept glancing nervously around the room, but I, of all people, kept telling myself it was just nerves. But then the lights dimmed. The curtain rose. It started as it always did, with me stepping onto the stage. I was playing the lead role, Lydia, the tragic bride. But as the first lines of the play slipped from my lips, something felt off. My voice wasn't mine. It sounded different, deeper. It was as if I was no longer in control of my own words. At first, I thought it was just part of performance, that I was getting lost in the role. But then I started saying lines that weren't in the script, lines that didn't make sense. They were angry words, words of betrayal, and I felt a strange, uncontrollable urge to speak them. The audience sat in stunned silence, unsure what was happening. My fellow actors hesitated, confused, but then they too started speaking lines they shouldn't have known. It was then that I saw her, Margaret. Her face, pale and twisted with fury, appeared in the shadowed corners of the stage. She wasn't a ghost. She was real. I could see the remnants of the fire's destruction on her, the charred remains of her skin, the singed hair that framed her face like a halo of death. Her eyes burned with hatred, and she was coming for me. I couldn't stop speaking. I couldn't stop acting, But it wasn't me anymore. It was as though her spirit had taken over, puppeteering my every move and word. I had become her vessel, her instrument of revenge. And then the flames erupted. They weren't part of the set. They weren't special effects. The fire was real, consuming the stage in an instant. The heat was unbearable, and the smoke filled the air, thick and choking. I could see the terror in my troops' eyes as the fire spread rapidly, trapping us inside the theater. The doors wouldn't open. The windows were sealed shut, and the flames roared like an animal hungry for its prey. Margaret's ghost smiled through the smoke. She had finally got what she wanted. I don't know how much time passed after that. The fire was merciless. My fellow actors screamed, their bodies melting into the inferno. I could feel myself burning, but I couldn't move. I was trapped in the nightmare that Margaret had created, and I knew that there was no escape. The last thing I remember before the fire consumed everything was Margaret's smile. It was the same smile that had haunted us for so long, the same smile that had watched as we all fell victim to her wrath. And then, I too became part of the fire. When I woke, it was morning. The theater stood in ruins, blackened and charred. The fire had done its work, leaving only ashes and the memories of what had once been. But there was something else. A single journal entry, torn from a notebook, lay on the stage amidst the wreckage. The handwriting was mine, my own but not my own. It read, "Revenge completes a performance." And now, here I am, trapped in Ravenwood. Not as I was before, but as something else. My spirit is bound to the stage, forever play my role as a cursed bride, eternally part of the haunted performance. I never believed in ghosts, but now I understand. We are all ghosts in this place. And Margaret is waiting for her next victim. I can still smell the smoke, feel the heat of the flames licking at my skin, and hear the maddening whispers of that cursed mask. It all started when I moved to Mallory Heights, a small suburban town that, at first glance, seemed peaceful. The streets were lined with neat cookie-cutter houses, and the air was filled with the scent of freshly cut grass and home-cooked meals. I had just gotten promotion at work, and my family was excited about starting a new life here. We moved into a beautiful house, one of the new builds that Sam Westbrook had constructed. Sam was well known in the area, too well known if you ask me now. He was a jolly, round mall Santa who everyone adored, the friendly face of the neighborhood. But that's all he was on the surface. Underneath that kindly exterior, Sam was something much darker. He was a predator, one who chose his victims with an unsettling methodicalness. Maria Gonzalez, a kind woman with 2 young children, had also moved into one of Sam's homes. She was a sweet soul, eager to make a fresh start for her family. I remember seeing her at the local park with her kids. She had this radiant smile, always laughing, always cheerful. But she vanished shortly after she moved into the house Sam had built for her. At first, I thought it was just another case of missing person, maybe an abandoned house, a new life somewhere else. But when the police couldn't make any headway, the story began to feel wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the whole thing. I wish I had done something then. Maybe I could have saved her, but I didn't, and that guilt would haunt me forever. It wasn't until I met Claire that things began to fall into place. Claire was one of the neighbors who had recently moved into a nearby home, another one of Sam's creations. She was a curious woman, always asking questions, always digging into things that most people would simply let slide. I think that's what drew her to Sam's cabin. The first time I visited, it was because Claire had invited me over. I didn't know her very well, but she seemed nice enough. She was an artist, always working on something new, something odd, something disturbing. She had a way of seeing the world that most people didn't understand. So when she told me about Sam's cabin, how there was something strange about it, I felt a mix of curiosity and unease. There was something she wasn't telling me, something she wanted me to see with my own eyes. I didn't want to go. I had heard the rumors about Sam, about his strange behavior. But at that point, we were both in over our heads. That night, the two of us went up to the cabin under the guise of just visiting, of just getting to the bottom of things. The house was isolated, tucked far away from the rest of the neighborhood. It looked like something out of a bad dream, its windows dark and hollow, as though it had been abandoned for years. But Sam wasn't there. Instead, the door to the basement was slightly ajar, and I could hear a faint, unnatural humming coming from below. It was a sound that unsettled me to my core. Claire went down first, her flashlight slicing through the darkness. I followed hesitantly, my footsteps echoing in the narrow staircase. As we reached the basement, the air turned cold, so cold that I could see my breath. Then Claire froze, her light fixated on something in the corner of the room. At first, I thought it was just some old furniture or forgotten junk, but when I stepped closer, I saw it, a mask. It was unlike any mask I had ever seen before. It was made of dark, smooth wood, its surface carved with intricate symbols that seemed to writhe and twist, almost as if they were alive. The eyes of the mask glinted, as if watching us, waiting for something. I tried to pull Claire away, but she wouldn't budge. Her fingers reached out, brushing against the mask, and the moment she did, everything changed. The air grew thick with a sense of impending doom, and a whispering voice filled my head. It was faint at first, but then clearer, louder, urging Claire to take the mask, to take revenge, to punish Sam. I tried to shout her, but my words died in my throat as the whisper became a scream. It was as if the mask was alive, feeding off her fear, pushing her into something darker than any of us had ever known. Claire put the mask on. I don't know what happened next. The world seemed to spin, and before I could react, I heard a crackling sound, the faint hiss of flames catching hold somewhere in the house. The fire spread quickly, devouring everything in its path. But that wasn't the worst part. As the fire consumed the cabin, I saw it. The mask now floating in the air, its face twisted in a grimace, as though it were laughing at us. And then Claire was gone. Just like that. She was dragged into the flames, pulled into the depths of the house. I screamed, but it was no use. The mask had claimed her, and she had become a part of its curse, its vengeance. I ran from the cabin, my heart pounding in my chest, the sounds of Claire's screams echoing in my ears. The fire had taken everything. Everything except the mask. As the last of the cabin burned to ground, I turned back to see it, sitting amidst the ashes, untouched, unmoving. I should have left then. I should have walked away and never looked back. But I couldn't. The guilt, the terror, the horror of what I had witnessed, none of it would let me go. I knew the mask had not just claimed Claire. It had claimed me too. It would never let me forget. And so here I am, standing on the edge of Mallory Heights, watching as the town remains blissfully unaware of the evil that festers beneath their feet. The curse of the mask lingers, haunting the streets, reaching out to those who dare to uncover its dark past. I don't know what happened to Sam. I don't know if he ever truly died in the fire. But I do know this. The mask is still out there. It is waiting for someone else, someone new to carry its curse, to give it life once again. I hear its whispers in my dreams. I see its face in the shadows. I can feel it, always lurking, always watching. The town of Mallory Heights is its playground now. And me? I'm just another ghost trapped in its web, forever bound to the mask, forever cursed by the things I should have never uncovered. If you ever find yourself in Mallory Heights, be careful where you look, because the mask is still out there, and it's always watching, always waiting, ready to claim its next victim.